Hey, second grade, it's Miss Herring. I hope that you guys are all doing well. I just want to let you know that we miss you so much. Miss Kyle and Miss Gary and I wish that you were at school, but right now we can't be, so we're going to make the best of it, and we're going to keep on learning, even though we're not at school, because we want to make sure that our brains are growing and that we are ready for third grade. So I'm going to be doing some reading with you guys on our video today, and all that you're going to need to work along with me is a pencil and your reading packet. So I'm going to be starting on lesson 6, which is called Ask and Answer Questions About Stories, and it's on page 92. So when we're talking about asking and answering questions about stories, we want to use those questions to find the key details of a story or to find the important parts, because that helps us understand our story and what the author is trying to tell us. So if you look on page 92, there is a little comic or a cartoon story about a family that is going hiking. So we're going to read this cartoon together, and then we're going to see what questions could we ask about it to help us better understand it. So look on page 92 with me. I'm going to read it out loud, and you can follow along. It says, Maria and Pete went for a hike with Mom and Dad. They came to a wide river. How will we get across? So we want to look at this cartoon and we want to see what questions can we ask about it. Now, whenever we're asking questions, we want to make sure we're using our question words. So we have who, what, when, where, why, and how. So what I would do is just start going down the list and see if I can come up with a question for any of those words. So my first word is who. When I say who, I'm talking about the characters in the story. So the people, the animals, and the talking objects. This story has people in it, and I know that my characters are those 4 people, Maria, Pete, Mom, and Dad. So I could ask, who are the characters in this story? And I could find that answer by looking back at the story. So I could say, who is in the story? And when I look back, I see it's Maria, Pete, Mom, and Dad. That's my first question. I'm going to give you guys a second to think in your brains and see if you can come up with a question about the story that's different from mine. So I've already used who. You could use any of these other words. So think for about 5 seconds. Can you come up with another question? All right. So my next question, I kept going down the list. I started with the word what. I said, what did they do? And I looked back in the story and I watched the pictures and I looked at the words and I saw that they went on a hike, or they were hiking. That's what they were doing, their action in the story. So I'm going to start writing my questions and my answers down on my chart so I can keep track of them. So if you look on page 93, you have a chart that looks just like mine. It has the first question and answer filled in, and then it has the next question, but we need to write the answer. So the question says, what do they do, or what did they do? So I know from the story that they went hiking. So on this side, I'm going to write, they went hiking. All right, now I need to fill in some more questions. So I've already used who, I've used what. My next question is when. So I could ask when to talk about the setting of a story, when and where the story takes place. So I'm going to go back to my cartoon and I could ask, when did they go hiking? But I'm looking at the pictures and I'm looking at the words, and it doesn't really tell me much about when they're hiking. Looks like it's maybe the daytime. So you could say that they went hiking in the daytime, but it doesn't give me a lot more information. So I might try to use another word that would give me a little more information. The next word says where. So that's talking about the setting again, when and where the story takes place. I can look at the pictures and see that they are hiking in the mountains. So I could say, where did they hike as my next question? Where did they hike? Make sure you put your question mark. They hiked in the mountains. I'm gonna have to write it kind of tiny to fit in. There we go. They hiked in the mountains. So I've got where. My next word is why. So why is talking about why a character in the story did something or why a character in the story said something. So I'm going to go back at my pictures, and I see in the first picture that the characters are hiking. So I could say, why are they hiking? But I don't really know why they're hiking. It doesn't tell me that. So it's probably not the best question I could ask. I'm going to try another one. And the next picture, I see that the characters are stopping at a river. They were walking and then they had to stop when they got to the river. So I could say, why did they stop? They stopped because they got to a river and they couldn't get across it. So why did they stop? Make sure you put your question mark. I'm gonna say they got to a river and they couldn't cross it. Okay, so we've got why, and then the last word that I have is how. So I kind of thought this one was going to be really easy because when I looked in the sentence, it already had the question how in the last cartoon. It said, how will we get across the river? But then I realized that I don't know how they're going to get across the river because the cartoon stops right there and it doesn't ever tell me the answer. So I can't ask how will they get across the river because I don't know. We could make a prediction, but it doesn't give us the information in the story, so that's not the best question that I could use. So now that you have all of your questions and your answers, you are ready to move on to your next story and do the same thing again, but this time on your own. So I'm gonna stop the video here and then I'm gonna start another video of me reading the story. So if you would like to hear the story and the questions read out loud, you can watch that video. And if you would like to just read it by yourself, then you can just start reading by yourself and answering the questions, but it's gonna be just like what we did. We're gonna fill out another chart asking about what happened in the story and then answering it with details from the story.